It's my great pleasure to introduce Ted Gruenloh. He resides in the FW area with his wife and 2 sons, which keep him busy on seemingly every ball field, basketball court, and Boy Scouts campground in North Texas area. He can also be found swinging a hammer for Habitat of Humanity or riding his beloved bicycle for team in training. I was told he is a world-class biker. Ted has worked with web and network security technologies for more than 15 years. He began his career in technology as a full-stack engineer in web development and design. As Director of Operations, Ted guides the overall development of Sentinel IPS and CINS, Active Threat Intelligence System, and all other supporting technologies. You might also find him presenting at the trade shows or information security conferences, spreading the word about shared threat intelligence. One of Sentinel's first employees, Ted is not afraid to get his hands dirty supporting Sentinel's customer or lending a hand in Sentinel software development. Ted received his Bachelor of Business Administration from the University of Iowa. Go Hawks! Go Hawks! And his Master in Education, Secondary Mathematics from the University of North Texas. Please help me welcome our next speaker, Ted Gruenloh. This is the advancement, and you also can use a mic that you wear.
So, 7 security mindsets to adopt today. Now this talk that we're going to do today, I know somebody who spoke before lunch was really nitty-gritty, a lot of technical data, a lot of technical information you can sink your teeth into. This is, we're going to take a step out, and we're going to go back to a 30,000 foot level, and we're going to just reset a little bit, and we're going to talk about different mindsets that we can use to help us when we're making decisions on the network security we're going to implement on our networks. Okay, so that's what we're going to do today. So does anybody have, because this is a little bit different crowd sometimes, who has children in this room? Oh, kids, okay, good. So how many times have you had to tell your kid repeatedly not to touch the flame, or whatever it might be, whatever that proverbial thing might be, right? You got to eat your peas, you got to eat your carrots, you got to eat your vegetables. Please stop hitting your brother, whatever it is, right? That's kind of what this talk is, okay? Because in network security, everybody wants to run to the new shiny thing. Everybody wants to run to the latest technology, and what we need to do occasionally, and that's what I'm here for today, is to step back and say, you know, there are some of these other things that work, that can work for you, that we occasionally will ignore, okay? So some of it's going to be new, and we're going to try to drag some of you older guys along with us, and some of it's going to be old school, okay? So let's go ahead and get started. Network security isn't about devices or hardware, okay? So if I'm saying that, what do you think it's about? Anybody have an idea? It's not about devices or hardware. People. People, that's a great answer. What else? Anything? Process assets. Process assets, sure, that's great. Those are great answers. I really just like to say really sensationalist things. That's why I said that, okay? But that's true, it's about people. And it's about other things outside of just the devices, right? We've got to step back from it, like I said before. So, permission to speak freely. What I mean by this is, everybody, normally when I'm giving a talk like this, it's at maybe a typical trade show or something like that, where there's 30 or 40 vendors. We've got 8 or 10 vendors out there, but a typical trade show, and there's IT network managers from small businesses that are looking for products to buy, right? So there's 30 or 40 vendors out there, and they're hawking their wares and they're trying to sell. So, of course, it's their job to sell you something that is the be-all, end-all. It's the one product you need, right? They're in this competitive environment. That's what they want to do. So, permission to speak freely. I work for a vendor that's sitting out there. We have a product to sell you, okay? But it's not the be-all, end-all. I'll be the first one to admit that. And what I want to start with a framework on the discussion is that not any one thing is going to be the answer you need, right? So let's just go ahead and make that assumption. Let's just take a deep breath and assume that, and we'll just go from there, okay? So every network is different. That's another key factor in this. You've got different things you have to deal with. So you may be a small company. You may be a large company with a lot more resources. So your resources that you can, whether you're going to be pulling people in or pulling different assets in or different devices in, every network is going to be different. Whether you're a bank is going to have a lot of different choices for network security than some other business or a municipality, for example. Okay, so every network is different. It's really the job of the people sitting out there. It's your job on a day-to-day basis to figure out which of those resources is going to make the best difference for your company. It's certainly not going to be one vendor, right? So the security is really going to be about mindsets. And what I mean by mindsets, really, that's just a fancy way of saying a plan. You got to have a plan, okay? So anybody have a lot of project management experience out there? Okay, so when you design a project, do you start, let's say we're going to build a shed in the backyard for your kids, okay? You're just going to run to Lowe's and buy some wood? Is that the first thing you're going to do? I'm going to build a shed. Sheds are made of wood. Let's go buy some wood, right? Is that what you're going to do? No, you're going to start with a plan, right? You're going to start with requirements. If you're speaking project management speak, you're going to start with requirements. What's the end game? Where are we going to end? Okay, so on your network, when you're designing your network security, you got to figure out what the end goal is, what the end requirements are. Okay, so now I have my requirements. Now I have to spec it out. What is it going to take to get those requirements fulfilled? What devices is it going to take? And then I implement it. And then I see what breaks or what stinks or what's terrible about my plan, and then I tweak it again, and it's an endless cycle. But you certainly don't start with that proverbial pile of wood to build your shed, right? So it's about mindsets. It's about getting in the right mind frame before you jump in with both feet and go ahead and just buy that new shiny device, right? So let's start with number one. Who said people when I said that before? Fix the people. This is the first mindset we're going to talk about. Aren't people just the worst? I mean, really, they really cause a lot of trouble for you, right? So what we're going to try to talk about are these basics. This isn't the whole talk. This is just one of the 7 mindsets. But it's number 1 for a reason, okay? So let's talk about this Verizon data breach. Who reads that Verizon report every year when it comes out? It's like Christmas, isn't it, when that thing comes out? Okay, so the data breach investigations report. This was earlier this year, I believe they released this. I love this. So 2010, you had this whole thing dedicated to spyware and keyloggers and all these old terms you used to hear. Well, I say old. They still exist, of course. But so you have this huge percentage here. Phishing was not necessarily as sophisticated as it is now, and spear phishing certainly wasn't. Okay, and RAM scraping, we'll discuss that in a second, was almost non-existent. Okay, that blue one we'll talk about in a second. But you can see that phishing has made a huge impact now on the way people get your information. Okay, it's much, much more sophisticated now. They're getting really, really good at it. Okay. Now RAM scraping, who knows what RAM scraping is? Is that okay? A few hands, that's good. So that was made famous really to the public with the Target breach. Is really where RAM scraping sort of had its coming out party. Okay, so those are going to be pieces of malware that exist on point of sale systems, and they will read the credit card information or whatever information you're going for that's encrypted for that split second that it's unencrypted in memory. So that's what those RAM scrapers do. So it's obviously, as we've started to see that increase in point of sale system breaches, you're going to see the RAM scraping become more and more important here. Okay, so phishing become more important, RAM scraping more important. That's all great, and this is wonderful that you've got this C kind of moving up and down. But anybody notice something that stayed pretty much the same the whole time? Okay, credentials, right? Basic credentials. Now, I assume what they mean by this is basic stuff, right? I'm intercepting email, and I'm getting username and passwords by conventional means. Perhaps I'm stealing it off a sticky note, you know, whatever it might be, right? So essentially what this chart is saying is that half of the people that got into networks, half of the breaches that have happened, occurred simply by walking in the front door with credentials. So I want you to tell me what shiny new device, if I have somebody's username and password and I have physical access, or if I have access to a network, what shiny new device is going to stop me from doing that? The answer is nothing. Okay? So let's fix the people, right? So whose fault is the credentials issue? Whose fault is that? It's the people, right? We don't like people. But our job would be a lot easier if we didn't have people to deal with, right? So let's see what we can do about it. 60% of the threat actions on that chart were because of people. I would also guess that the phishing, I don't know why they broke it out this way in that report, but that 20% phishing, that's people, right? That's people clicking on links they shouldn't click on, they're being spear-phished, whatever it happens to be. And then that the RAM, I already forgot what the term was. The RAM scraping, thank you. It was a long night. So the RAM scraping, well, let's think of the examples where RAM scraping came into play. Target, for example. Well, how did they get the malware on the point-of-sale systems? They went through the HVAC company, right? I'll talk about that in a minute, how they got there. But that was people. That was through credentials, right? So it's really not 60%. It's more like 100%. Okay? I'm exaggerating for effect, but I think you get my point. So there really are too many examples and not enough time. Let's go over two of them. Sally Beauty has been busted at least twice in the last year or two. Big news, right? So the original Sally Beauty breach, anybody remember how that they got in the first breach was? Well, it was people, of course. We're on the fix the people slide, right? So it's probably about people. But the funny story in that one is they figured out who the user was, looking through logs, they dug through, they figured out who the user was. They're going, okay, let's go find that user, let's go see how they were compromised. Hey, John in accounting, let me see your laptop. Oh, okay. Pop open his laptop, sticky note, username and password right there on the laptop. Okay? Target, of course, I mentioned that already, but Target, let's have a quick review of how Target happened. Well, they had a heating and air conditioning vendor, right, that had access to one of their business-to-business systems. And so they phished the HVAC vendor, got credentials into Target system, and were able to move around from there, right? So it's all about credentials. Now, better credentials should be pretty easy. So the no-brainers. What makes a great password? Now, I could probably split you guys up into tables of 8, and you'll all come back with a different answer, okay? How many people have gone on those websites where it has the little thing? It's like a little game you play, right? Can I make a really good password? Will this website tell me? Will it give me validation that I made a really good password? You know, it's red. Ooh, ooh, it turned to orange. Oh, it's yellow. Oh, it's green. Yay, they like my password, right? Well, what makes a really great password? Not a password. Yeah. I'm sorry?
Something that is not a password.
Sure, sure. Yeah. Complexity. Did I hear complexity? Length and complexity.
I'm the last one that knows it.
Right, that's the key. The only secret's the secret, right, as soon as I've told somebody else.
Past phrases.
Past phrases, okay. See, I had you as a plant, because you said the last time you heard me do this talk. So, past phrases, those are all the rage these days, right? Past phrases, long phrases, maybe common words, maybe not, random words, use spaces. Password, most things don't care whether you use a space or not, it's just a special character, but it's easy to remember. Who knows that XKCD cartoon about pass phrases? Everybody seen that? It's brilliant. It talks about you do this one password and it's got the leet with the 0 replacing the O and the special character this and special character that. But it's impossible to remember. And the tagline of that cartoon is, it's taken us 20 years, but we finally did it. We've trained ourselves to have passwords that are impossible for people to remember, but easy for machines to crack. That's what we've done, okay? That's what we've done with passwords, okay? So get educated on what a great password is. Pass phrases is a good start. having two-factor authentication, which I think leads to your point a little bit. Some other things out there. But I am talking about, in this sense, the traditional password, because those kind of systems aren't going away anytime soon where it's just a single password. There are too many legacy systems out there, and we can talk about all kinds of, you know, biometrics and all that kind of stuff till we're blue in the face. But that passwords are going to be around a while. Okay, we can't really escape it. Okay, so how are your application logins? Let me tell you a story. And what I'm assuming here is that some of the people in the room are in charge of systems where they actually have some control over what you might require from your users for passwords, right? So my buddy has given me some money for a trip we just took, and he's paying me so we even things out. And he's a Chase Bank customer. And he says, hey, why don't you use this Chase Easy Pay system? I'm like, okay, that's cool. I have to sign up for it. So I sign up for it, and I put in, well, what username would you like to use? Well, I'd like to use my email address. No, sorry, you can't do that. Okay, I can't use my email address for a username. Fine. Okay, my name. You know, all one word. Nope, sorry, your username has to have a number in it. What? See, they're making it really hard for you to remember these things. I haven't even gotten to the password yet, okay? Now, get this. So I get to the password part of it. This is Chase Bank. This is a big company. So I get to the password piece of it, right? No, it must be 8 characters, but no more than 16, please, okay? And it has to have a special character, but, you know, numbers, letters, we don't really care. Okay, so they're putting these restrictions on you, right? And in addition to that, in case you forget this, they're smart. They know that people forget their passwords. So they have a second password, a security phrase, they call it, with the exact same rules as the password. That's hard to remember. I don't understand. So anyway, how are your application logins? So if you can get good knowledge about what a great password is, maybe you can help on your systems, help your users out a little bit, right? Make it easier for them to get good passwords. Now, of course, I'm leaving out other solutions that work really well, like 1Pass, things like that you can use on your phone that translate over to other devices where it will create giant random 16-character passwords for you that you don't ever have to memorize. Things like those are great systems. But really, I'm just talking about the bare bones password here, okay? And also, do people take their login seriously? That's really a direct reference to my Sally Beauty, okay? You can have a really great passphrase, a really nice long sentence with 9 random words in it that nobody can guess. But if you've written it down on a sticky note and you put it on your laptop, okay, kind of out of luck. So how do you get to this? How do you get to having great passwords and application logins? Well, training. Training would help, right? So strongly consider consistent training and testing. And what I'm going to do is give you just a little, anybody ever hear about securingthehuman.org? Okay, it's run by CINS. Securingthehuman.org is a great reference for end user training. Okay, so if you do have users in a system and you want them to get better and keep your network more secure, securingthehuman.org/end user. That's something CINS offers. I'm not affiliated with that group per se. It does cost money, okay? But they also have a lot of great tips on there for free, okay? So that's a good place to start. So the takeaway on Fix the People. Shop around, figure out what shiny devices you need in your network, but don't ignore people. Don't ignore the people, okay? Spend some of your money that you might have spent on the brand new shiny $100,000 whiz-bang box. Maybe look at spending that money on people. Might be more effective, okay? Number 2, new school layered security. Okay, layered security, that's a term that's been around forever, okay? What does layered security mean to you? Just throw out some words. Defense in depth, right? That's kind of a synonym for it, right? Okay, what does it mean? Defense. Defense means protection, right? So that's kind of an old school layered security way of thinking about things. We're going to protect all these pieces throughout the network. Okay, now what's changing these days is that perspective about protection. Now it's all about this new buzzword, I say new, of visibility. So if you go out to the vendors at a typical trade show, they're all going to be talking about visibility. They're not going to necessarily be talking about armor-clad metaphorical knights protecting your network. They're going to be talking about being able to see everything on your network, being aware of everything that's going on in your network, okay? Visibility is kind of like the new layered security. Layered security is kind of an older term. Defense in depth is getting kind of long in the tooth as a term. So visibility is sort of taking its place. Now, it's also a combination of people, policies, and devices. Whereas, yes, sir?
One question to visibility being invisible.
Sure.
One thing that's been around for a long time, situational awareness, which fits into your visibility.
Yeah.
So is it maybe repackaging, finally realization that it's about situational awareness?
Yeah, I think situation, that's another term. You won't see that term in this talk, but certainly you'll see it later when I talk about, spoiler alert, we're going to talk a little bit about threat intelligence, situational awareness, and the context of where that data comes from. It's a very valuable piece of information. Yeah, I guess kind of the whole point is these concepts keep coming back up and they get repackaged with different terms. But they honestly don't change much. The philosophy doesn't really change much. So, yeah. So, but I think people are becoming more aware that it's not just about the devices. It's about more than that. It's about training your people. It's about having good policies in place so that you can do something with your people. If you can slap them on the wrist, right? And you can understand what's going on with them, okay? And it also, like I mentioned before, it's not just this knight in shining armor anymore. We're talking about visibility. So it's not just protection. It's protection, detection, and disruption. So what this is doing, people are finally willing to admit, it's kind of like that, when I said before about permission to speak freely. It's not just protection anymore, like we're perfect, we're going to protect you. No, we need to detect once they've been in. We need to know what's going on here. And oh, they're in, how can we disrupt them? How can we segment our network and make sure that they don't get to something more valuable than what they're already on? Okay, so it parallels to another old school term. Everybody loved the term cyber kill chain. Isn't that one of the greatest buzzwords in the history of network security? Cyber kill chain, I love it. So we are going to talk a little bit about, we're going to use the cyber kill chain to kind of march through this layered security a little bit. So cyber kill chain started with, I think it was Lockheed that started it, and we're going to simplify it a little bit and consolidate a couple of the steps for this presentation, but it's the same idea. We're going to use this. So first is recon. So reconnaissance. You got the bad guys out there kind of sniffing around your network. What can help you? What can help you with the recon? Well, people. Solving your people problem is going to help you with the recon. Phishing emails, whatever it might be. IPS IDS does a decent job of stopping scans and blocks and those sorts of things. Your firewall, of course, would do that as well. Scanning, vulnerability, penetration testing, threat intelligence to some degree. Or I'm sorry, I have active threat intelligence. I'll talk about what that is in a minute. But basically, utilizing your threat intelligence in a way that can help stop bad guys from reconning in the first place. That's the idea behind it. So now we're going to keep moving down this cyber kill chain. That's recon. Let's say we didn't stop them there. Okay? Weaponization and delivery. Combining some things there. So you've got some policy. So weaponization, now they've got this piece of malware or whatever they're trying to deliver to your network. They're weaponizing it. They're putting on something that they can actually use. So policy can help with that. What if the malware's on a flash drive? People, again, with phishing emails. Again, IPS IDS and spam filters, web proxies. Those things are all looking for telltale signs of something that might be installed on your network, right? Delivery, for example. Okay? So exploitation and installation. Well, they've taken the next step down this cyber kill chain, right? They've gotten past delivery. Now they're going to start exploiting. So what are they going to do? Well, antivirus. Now we're talking on the host. Host-based systems, sandbox solutions like FireEye, for example, is a good example of a sandbox solution. That's a shiny new. I'm not dissing FireEye by saying this, but I would consider FireEye one of the shiny new toys that people like to play with, right? Does a really good job. They've kind of created their own space in network security, and people are following them there. Sandbox solutions which can watch behavior on a network and on your endpoints. So once it's installed, we're looking on the endpoints for things there. So now, command and control. Now it's going to start talking back out. It's going to start exfiltrating. So what are we going to do about that? Again, IPS IDS can do a decent job of recognizing traditional known malware as it phones out to a command and control server. A SIM with threat intelligence built in, a SIM device that's gathering all this data off of your network and is receiving threat intelligence feeds can say, hey, wait a minute, this machine is talking out to an IP address in Russia, and we've never done that before. Should we be doing that? So that sort of intelligence works there. Network monitoring tools with NetFlow, anomaly detection, all those sorts of things. So this is kind of what I would call, again, it's visibility. Not all of this is protection, right? We've sort of gone from protection up here, and then, we're into detection in this area, and then down here we're talking about disruption, right, with actions and objectives. Now, we're talking about network monitoring tools, system hardening, and network segmenting to disrupt their movement. Let's say they're in. What are we going to do about stopping them from getting what's important? Okay. So that is, in a nutshell, network, the new school layered security. So let's move on to number 3. Oh, well, first of all, I want to give a takeaway. I want to try to have the discipline here to give you a little bit of a takeaway on each one of these. So number 2, takeaway from number 2, don't focus on only protection. We're in this new era now. You want to look at visibility for protection, detection, and disruption. Okay. So number 3 and 4, we're going to bunch those together. Knowing what's normal and being able to act when it's not. Okay. So, tools for knowing what's normal. Not my expertise, you know better than I do. What do you have on your network right now to help you determine what's normal and what's not? You can throw out some names of software or systems you use or vendors you use. LightCyber, okay. Who has a SIM? Anybody, who has a SIM installed on the network? Okay. FireEye, another good example, maybe. Tools for knowing what's normal. So living in the real world, what's most important to you? Now I could stand up here on knowing what's normal and I could rattle off all the different vendors and devices you should have on your network to have complete and full visibility. Part of this, part of knowing what's normal and being able to act on it is living in the real world, realizing that you might be a small, medium-sized business, you don't have the resources to afford all this stuff. So you got to figure out what's important to you, okay? So you have intellectual property on any particular machines. You have a development team that has all the intellectual property on this little segmented section of your network over here. Perhaps a shared file server, perhaps it's an email server that you really want to protect. You got to determine what that's supposed to be, right? So, also, do you have a plan in place for fixing what's important to you quickly? We just walked through that cyber kill chain, right? What if they do get into your network? What if they exfiltrate? What if they break something? Okay? Do you have a way to fix something quickly? So disaster recovery obviously comes into that. Understanding your systems. And normally I'd use some analogy at this point, and I'd say Bob in accounting or John, the IT guy from 2004, built this Linux box that's gathering dust over in the corner and still whirring away. We don't know what that thing does. Okay? Well, here's a real story. So we're working with a vendor to help us put a new feature into our product. And we've got him in our place, and he's doing some stuff on our network just as a test. And he comes out and he goes, hey, what's that box called SMS? What does it do? And I look at one of the other guys in our company, and I go, SMS? We haven't run the SMS. It doesn't matter what SMS stands for. It's secret. We haven't run the SMS system for 3 years. What is the SMS box doing? So even in our little company that has, at least in our own office has one server rack, right? We've got this box running, whirring away, talking to some other boxes on the network, and we had no idea it was running. Okay? And I just admitted that to you right here in public. Okay? But it's important that you know what's on your network, right? And that you know how to fix it. And also, what's really important here is that these are about relevant data. The problem that you get into when you gather all of this information and knowing what's normal is you end up with a stack of data this tall that you can't do anything with. Okay? So the key to this is making it relevant. Is it useful data to you? And is it relevant? Can you actually use it to help solve your problems? Okay? Number 5. Oh, I promised, didn't I? I promised to take away. Focus on what's important, know what's normal, and have a plan in place to react when it's not normal. Okay? Number 5, threat intelligence, the new black. So you get the joke because the font's in orange, and orange is the new. Anyway, okay. That was the joke. Thank you for getting it now. So from my previous presentation that I used to give, and I think I gave it at this event in March, we talked about threat intelligence a lot, and we talked about threat intelligence and how it relates to layered security, right? Kind of this old school, new school term. So threat intelligence, what we sort of determined in that talk was threat intelligence means a lot of things to a lot of people, and it's a buzzword that's been usurped by marketing companies across the world to mean 100 different things. But generally, threat intelligence is data that can help you solve problems and help make your network more secure. Okay, when it's put to good use, it can protect you. That's what threat intelligence is. So, it's a buzzword right now. It's really hot right now. It's been over $150 million of new venture capital money just in the last year put into threat intelligence companies, aggregators of threat intelligence. Okay, President Obama had the executive order last year, and there was a big to-do about that. I'm sure people are familiar with ISACs. Everybody familiar with ISAC organizations? Okay. So ISAC, what does ISAC stand for? Anybody? Information Sharing and Analysis Center, right? Yes. Information Sharing and Analysis Center. So there's the multi-state ISAC is an important organization that helps a lot of municipalities and government organizations. There's the FS ISAC, that's the financial sector ISAC. So there's all these ISACs, and they share, the idea is they share all this intelligence amongst themselves in these sectors. Now there are arguments being made, let's say each of these tables is an ISAC. Somebody can make the argument that this ISAC should probably talk to that ISAC, and this one should talk to that, and they should all talk together. And there's kind of a big hubbub now about who's sharing what information with whom. That's a whole other political discussion. But that's the kind of thing that's going on now. People are wanting to share information and share threat intelligence. So that's what threat intelligence is. Now let's talk about actionable versus active. I spent some time in my last talk about this too. Actionable is kind of what I would consider traditional threat intelligence. You're going to gather threat intelligence, you're going to gather this data about bad guys, and you're going to plug it into a SIM device, most likely, and that SIM device is going to crank through some data, and it's going to tell you, it's going to be able to tell you that, hey, you probably shouldn't be talking to that guy, you might want to look at that. Okay? That's sort of the standard actionable threat intelligence, right? You have an incident response team. Who has an incident response team? Yeah, like one, right? Okay. so it's, and it's her. That's the incident response team. So that's kind of rare situations to have a team that's able to look into some of this data. So what we want to try to do is make it active. We want to try to use this data, if it's possible, through reputation lists and other threat intelligence to put this data in a place, perhaps out on the perimeter, if such a perimeter exists, where you can use the threat intelligence automatically, okay, and you can stop bad guys from getting in before they even get there, okay. So here's the little giveaway for you. Here's some free resources for threat intelligence, okay. If you're interested in threat intelligence, you want to research it a little bit, if you want some free sources of great information for threat intelligence, here are a few, okay. Emerging threats, old school IPS, IDS vendors. They just were bought by Proofpoint. But if you go to rules.emergingthreats.net, you'll find all kinds of great resources, including great free IDS, IPS rule sets, that sorts of thing. You have Alien Vault. Anybody using Alien Vault right now? Okay, really good vendor in the small, medium business range, and really good company. Great marketing, and I don't mean that in a bad way. Like, they're out there, they're visible, they're saying a lot of things, they're trying to make their voice heard really well. They have the Open Threat Exchange. Alien Vault makes the largest open source SIM in the world, the most used open source free SIM that's available. And a lot of the data that comes out of that gets flooded back through the Open Threat Exchange. So there's a lot of data there. Millions of IP addresses you can stick into your SIM or your firewall or something. Shadowserver.org is a great resource, not necessarily threat intelligence in the true sense of the word, but a good list of command and control servers out there, known command and control servers for malware. Okay, so this list correlated with some of your network data can tell you whether you're talking to bad guys, even if it won't necessarily tell you why. Okay, DShield, classic SANS Internet Storm Center, dshield.org has a lot of good information. And then small plug for our company, Sentinel IPS, CINScore.com. We release right now, it's very simple. It's just text file IP addresses. You can slap in your firewall if you want to and keep a lot of bad guys out. Okay, so those are the free resources. Then we have the not so free. Okay, so these guys are some of these people I was talking about getting funding from different venture capitalists. ThreatStream. I put ThreatStream at the top of the list because ThreatStream was founded by a guy named Greg Martin. He's from Waxahachie, Texas. Used to work for us at Sentinel IPS. Went out and made himself famous and rich by starting ThreatStream. They've done a really good job. They're an aggregator of threat intelligence. So they go grab all these sources of free threat intelligence and not so free from around the world. They gather it up in a ball and they give it to you in a way you can swallow. Okay, because this stuff can get intimidating pretty quickly. These other two vendors, ThreatConnect and iSight Partners, do similar work. So if you're wanting to research threat intelligence, like what is this threat intelligence thing, that's a good place to start in terms of what vendors can do for you. Okay? Number 6, hang with the cool kids. Oh, did I forget my... If I forget my takeaway, you just throw a piece of paper at me if I forget my takeaway. So takeaway, even if you can't afford to implement a threat intelligence aggregator like ThreatStream or something, you can implement some active threat intelligence to help protect you today. Those free resources I was showing you, okay? I think some of these takeaways are kind of obvious, aren't they? Yeah, but anyway. So number 6, hang with the cool kids. We talked a little bit about ISACs already. Membership in industry info sharing groups like the ISACs, okay? So if you're in the financial sector and you don't know about FS ISAC, shame on you, right? If you're in the banking community, you have independent banks, well, you should probably know about the Independent Banking Association. If you're an IT guy for a law firm, you should know about ILTA, International Law Technology A something, okay? But ILTA is in other words, the whole point of that is that every organization is going to have some overarching IT company or IT group that you can be a member of that's going to be able to share information with you, okay? So you should be aware of those and be active in them, okay? Are you on Twitter yet? Who's on Twitter? Okay, this is the wrong crowd for this. Well, not the wrong crowd, I should say. But Stephen, do you remember when I did this last time? How many people? It was a group about this size. How many people raised their hand? Yeah, like you did, and you're like, oh, jeez, right? Like, it's a little different crowd here. We're at a university on a Saturday, and we've got some students in the room, and maybe we skew a little younger here, okay? But Twitter really is the best resource out there for network security and staying up with the latest and greatest trends, right? It really is the best way to do it. Now the ISACs, if you're a member of the ISACs or a US CERT, or maybe even you're getting some of the green-lighted FBI bulletins that come out, whatever it may be, if you're on Twitter, by the time you get those bulletins in your email box, it's 24 hours, 48 hours, you know, and you already knew about it. It's old news. You're like, oh yeah, I heard about that a long time ago because I follow XYZ on Twitter and they were saying that 2 days ago. Okay, so Twitter is a fantastic resource for you. So here are some good follows on Twitter. Let's talk about these. For those of you not on Twitter, this is the Twitter logo. Okay. You know what's cool about this logo, by the way? You can see it's made out of circles. It's all made out of circle cutouts. See? Circle, circle, circle. See that? Isn't that kind of cool? Just nod your head. I think it's cool. Yeah, thank you. There you go. Thank you. Isn't that awesome? It's a cool design. It's neat. Anyway, I'll remember not to say that next time. Okay, so Brian Krebs, he's got to be first on this list because he's a really good writer. He's an independent blogger, writes about network security. He combs the dark web all the time, and he's constantly having snarky little fights back and forth on Twitter with people. He's a great follow on Twitter, and he has really good information about whatever the latest breach is and how the breach happened, and he gets really good inside stories, okay? So it might not be breaking news necessarily, but he's the top guy in my opinion in terms of being in the know, right? Okay, Dark Reading is a great resource. If you're following them on Twitter, they're going to be doing a better job of breaking stories and also some in-depth articles as well, perhaps about the latest and greatest shiny product, keep you up to date on what's coming out and what's new. SC Magazine, now they're kind of loud on Twitter, to be honest, but they'll do a good job of breaking something. So if you want something quick, like if something just happened, SC Magazine's a good place to start. Like you'll see it, and then maybe if you want to research it, you can go to some other resource for that. But SC Magazine does a really good job of breaking stories. Okay. Sentinel IPS, that's us. I put us up there because what we tend to do in our Twitter feed is forward along articles we think are interesting. Okay. So if you're lazy and you don't want to follow a bunch of different people, just follow us. We'll give you some interesting articles a few times a day. Okay. Alien Vault, again, like I said, they're a good marketing company. They have a lot of good blog posts, a lot of interesting information. They're very willing to share information about other companies. They're not shy about that at all. So Alien Vault's a good follow. Threat Post. Threat Post is the marketing / news arm of Kaspersky. Familiar with Kaspersky? Everybody familiar with Kaspersky? Okay. So they're related to Kaspersky, but they're kind of this independent arm of Kaspersky that writes news articles and blogs and that sort of thing. So they're really in the know as well in terms of the latest technology because of their relationship with Kaspersky. Okay. CI Security. Who's familiar with CI Security? Okay, so CI Security, going back to the MS ISAC, you talked about the ISACs. CI Security is the organization that sort of overlooks the MS ISAC. So CI Security was instrumental back in the day, I say back in the day, 2 years ago, whatever it was, when CryptoLocker first broke. Well, nobody really had, again, I'm in the IPS world, okay, so we're interested in rule sets and predictability, right? Well, nobody really had a rule written yet for anything that was going on with this CryptoLocker stuff. It was brand new, but CI Security had a blog post that they were updating hourly with different IP addresses that people were talking to, okay? So maybe we didn't have a rule in place, but boy, if you were watching their blog or watching their Twitter feed, you could keep up with the latest IPs. And if you could get those into your firewall and stop somebody on the inside of your network from phoning out to that command and control server, you're going to keep your boxes clean. So that's what I mean by this kind of up-to-date sort of thing. CI Security is a really good example of that. Okay, Search Security, another good resource for news and that sort of thing. And of course, no other Twitter feed is complete without Kim Kardashian. So now if this intimidates you, by the way, if you're new to Twitter, I'll tell you two things. And for people who are already on Twitter who are like rolling their eyes like, oh my God, I can't believe he's talking about this. Okay, just chill for just a second, okay? But there's a couple things on Twitter. What's really great is if you're really confused about this and you don't know who to follow, just go to somebody's page on Twitter that you trust, that is already in, and you can see who they follow. And you can follow the same people they follow, okay? You can do that, that's one way. And then another way, if it gets intimidating, sometimes I want to look at pictures of cute cats, right? Well, I don't want, network security tweets to get in the way of my cute cat pictures, right? So you can segment things into lists, okay, on Twitter. You can set up lists. So I have a network security list, and if I just want to look at tweets from my that's what I do at work. I'll have the Twitter feed over here, which can be really, really annoying if you're looking at cute cat pictures all day, okay? But if you just have it segmented down to your list of network security guys, it's very useful, okay? So that's the basics on Twitter. Now, people who are already into Twitter, you can open your eyes and ears back up again. Okay, thank you. All right, number 7. Oh, takeaway. Thank you so much. Takeaway. By following a small handful of people on Twitter, you can stay up to date on the latest threats and security news. No excuses. Okay, no excuses. And this really is valuable for when I'll do this at a trade show, like I mentioned before. When I do this at a trade show, and the room is 80 people, and they're all small company network IT guys. They're not security people, really. And they're like, man, how am I going to keep up with all this stuff? It really is a good way for that. So, number 7, you've been breached. Now, maybe you have, maybe you haven't, okay? But the latest mandate report, it was a couple months ago, I think, 69% of victims' targeted attacks had to be told they had a problem. Hey, by the way, we noticed, you know, something going on. Oh, I'm getting the yellow card, thanks. You had to be told something was going on. So in other words, somebody outside of your network noticed something coming out of your network that was bad for something. 70%, right? And guess what? The median days group were present and active before the detection. The median. 205 days before they're discovered. And you know why they use median? A little bit of stats nerdiness for you. Why are they using median instead of mean? Why not use the average? Well, because the average is not very resistant to outliers. Okay, so if you've got a lot of outliers in your statistics, the average is going to get out of whack. So they want to use median. They want to use that middle value because it's a more meaningful value. Because the number 1 highest, longest infiltration without being noticed was 2,982 days. That's 8 years. Okay. Have we even been in network security for 8 years? Like, how is that possible? So, I don't know who it was, but that was the stat from Mandiant. So, the idea here is getting back to that cyber kill chain and getting back to the idea that we're not just talking about protection anymore, we're talking about protection, detection, and disruption. Okay? Rethink traditional layers from the inside out. We want to assume we've been breached and then go from there. We want to start from the inside. How would we change our thinking? Because right now, the thinking has traditionally been, put this perimeter out there with the firewall and an IPS, and then you step into each little layer of the onion, as it were, right? Let's start from the inside and move out. Let's assume we've already been breached. How would we deal with it, right? We'd think about it completely differently if we thought that way. So we've got these layers that aren't just protection anymore. They're this blend of policy and prevention, detection, disruption like I talked about, okay? But let's do this what if. Let's play a what if and prioritize, okay? So what if my email server got knocked over, you know? What if I found out somebody was sitting on my my shared server where all the intellectual property is for my developers and my coders? What would I do? Okay? And now some of you are probably out there. You've got this one group that's out there that's going, well, that's easy. I would just I would wipe that machine, and I've got the backup stored right here, and I can hit my automatic whiz-bang security, and I'll have that box up from a snapshot I took yesterday, and I'll have it up in an hour. That's one group. Okay? And then you've got the second group, which is, well, it's not that easy. I'm going to have to burn that box in a fire. Okay? I'm going to have to buy a new box, but I at least have the data backed up over here, and I can rebuild this box with the OS, and I can bring the data over here, and I'll have it up in 8 hours, and I'll miss my kid's baseball game. Okay, that's group number 2. Then you have group number 3, which is, I need to find a new job. Okay? So which one do you want to be a part of? You know, that's kind of what this discussion is about. So you got to play that what if game and really think about it, really focus on what's important in your network. That gets back to the priorities, right? Of what can I afford to do? What can I not afford to do? You may leave 4 or 5 accounting PCs over here alone and not even necessarily worry about them if you can't afford to protect them, but you're going to really worry about that intellectual property network segment over here, right? Okay. So the takeaway from that, I remember this time. The takeaway from that, assume you've been breached and start planning from there. It will allow you to focus not only on protection, but protection, detection, disruption, recovery, and visibility. Okay? So, and also, by the way, it influences all these other mindsets. All these other 6 things we've talked about actually kind of come from this. If you start here, you can look back at each of the other mindsets. You can look back and say, okay, fix the people. Yeah, wow, okay, what if my server got knocked over? Well, how did it get knocked over? Yeah, phishing email. It goes back to new layered security, like I said. You'd change your priority about how you would do that. You would know what's normal. You'd be able to react when it's not. Like I said, the 3 scenarios, right? So then you're going to integrate some threat intelligence. You're going to really want to know if somebody's bouncing around in your network and they start exfiltrating, you're going to want to know if they're talking to somebody bad. Okay? You're going to need to know that. And then hang with the cool kids. Don't forget Twitter. No excuses. Okay? It's very easy, very simple. And assume you've been breached is the last one. So any other questions that you might have? This, by the way, this presentation was based on an ebook that we released on our website. If you're interested in downloading the ebook, you can go to sentinelips.com and download it from there. If you're interested in following either me or our company on Twitter, there are those, and hook up with me on LinkedIn if you'd like. And that's all I have. Any questions? I think I've got a couple of minutes for questions. Anything? Anyway, so if a lot of you were, just one more thing, if a lot of you were like, hey man, I've heard this before, for you that sort of know this stuff already, that was kind of the point, as a good refresher. Okay? For those of you that might be network IT people, but not necessarily security focused, hopefully it gave you a few ideas in terms of what's important these days in network security. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.